This is Event Horizon Radio with your host, Francis Walsh. Good morning. It's 10:27 a.m. Friday, April 26th. 3 days ago, I had an interview with Brother Guy Consolmagno from Vatican City. He is one of the Popes Astronomers. In the next 18 minutes, you'll hear he and I speak about the things I'm interested in and the news I want to bring to you. Good afternoon, everyone. WEHR, Event Horizon Radio, 2:16 p.m. with your host, Francis Walsh. Outside, it's cloudy, hot, and wet. Right now, it's going to be my discussion with Brother Guy Consolmagno, the Pope's Astronomer. You've heard about it because I've been talking about it all week. I got a chance to talk to him. I tried to record him with Pamela for Skype, and Pamela for Skype, I don't like. Anyways, we got 18 minutes of Brother Consolmagno, so let's start. Hello, Brother Guy.
Hello, is this coming through well? Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
No problem at all. Coming loud and clear.
Well, I'm very, very happy that this is occurring. I was almost afraid that it wasn't going to occur because I went back and looked at our correspondence, and as I wrote, I said, oh, you said the week of, and I was all looking forward to date. But you were able to join me for this conversation today, and thank you so much, Brother Guy. I'm not even sure that I'm speaking to you, but I know that I am, you know?
Right, no problem.
Okay, I know that it's a little bit late in the evening, 8:30 p.m. your time in Vatican City, so I'm going to try to go right ahead. Brother Guy, my name is Francis Walsh, and I am a lot of people's favorite amateur astronomer. I'm contacting you today because we as a group, and I consider ourselves a group, have some great cosmological questions that we want to find people to ask great questions of. And you, my friend, my new friend, are one of those people. Is that okay?
I'll do my best. I don't promise to have all the answers, though.
Oh, no. And honestly, we don't need answers sometimes because sometimes the answers aren't there, and we have to reflect on the fact that the answer is unknown.
And sometimes,
so no problem.
And sometimes
nothing's
nothing's
definitive here in my world.
Sometimes the questions are more interesting than the answers.
Yes, coming up with the questions are sometimes the best part, and that's a great point. So I want to do a little bit of history as far as I know it, if I could. And of course, I may do a terrible job, but I'm going to try. You are what I've been calling the Pope's Astronomer, yes?
I am one of them.
Yes, and I can agree with that. There happens to be many people who are learned in astronomy in Vatican City, in theology, because if we go back in history, there was a learning of astronomy and science before they were allowed to learn theology and some of the religious theories, correct?
That's right. The original universities had a requirement that you had to learn music and arithmetic and astronomy before you could go on to do either philosophy or theology. But on top of that, right now we have an observatory of a dozen active astronomers, and I'm just one of the dozen. We come from four continents and lots of people here.
Yeah, right. You take care. You have the meteorites that you're responsible for, so it's necessary to have more than one astronomer. And I did make it kind of singular, and it is kind of in jest at the same, because everyone realizes that we need much more than one astronomer for the Pope.
On top of that, everyone should know that science in general, certainly astronomy, is never done by one person alone. It's always done as part of a team. You can never do all the work yourself.
And I follow that as well. I have my friends, and then we have our connections with other astronomers who work together, and the whole global astronomy community work together in order to discover, recover, analyze, research, do the science on those cosmological things that each one is focused on, whether by training or by their love of the science. Myself, I'll tell you, I'm learning astronomy the hard way. If there's a hard way, I think I'm learning it the hard way, but I'm doing wonderful things to keep me motivated, like reaching out to people like yourself, which keeps me very motivated to learn more. I went out and learned how to do my astrometry, learned how to use networks of robotic telescopes to take images of objects in space, because, Brother Guy, back a few years ago, someone... Now, I know there was some breaks in the conversation. He and I were talking about our favorite thing, astronomy, and then we got back to it. So there's a whole series of, there's actually more than one binocular telescope up there.
Well, there's one binocular telescope, but there's 3 telescopes on the mountain. There's also a 10-meter microwave telescope. And it's kind of like a radio telescope, only works in a slightly different wavelength. So there's 3 telescopes altogether on top of Mount Graham.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question that maybe we don't have any experience with. I see the future of telescopes in the infrared ranges, right? I'm looking at this whole experience with the telescopes that I use and the objects that we use, and myself and my father-in-law built an observatory from the ground up, personal one, and we take the images of our telescopes and we broadcast them live online for the people to come and see for free, so they can see what we're looking at through our telescopes, right? Mm-hmm. But that's all through visual light. And so our visual light spectrum's space around us has pretty much been mapped. And now we're getting into the future of telescope researching the space outside our atmosphere, and we're into all the unseen infrared wavelengths, right?
I would not say that. No, I think there's a great future still in visual astronomy, in the visual wavelengths. Certainly, infrared is great. For a lot of infrared, you have to go into space to get above the atmosphere. But even the stuff you can see in up to 3 microns, there's a lot to be done there. But I wouldn't poo-poo the visual wavelengths. For one thing, it's interesting now with better detectors to look at fainter things than people had measured before. Most of the surveys up to now had been, to 12th, 14th, 15th magnitude. But with a telescope on Earth now and modern equipment, you can get to 22nd, 23rd magnitude pretty quickly. So there's lots of faint things you can see. And in addition, there are things that change with time. Transient events, asteroids that are slowly changing their brightness as they spin, very active stars or protostellar objects that give off flares. There's a lot of work that is done all the time, even with visual astronomy. It's a big sky out there. We haven't come close to running out of things to look at.
Okay, I agree, totally agree. For us, the amateur astronomers working within the visual wavelengths of light, lots of things to see and do. Still room for research, discovery, and recovery
Absolutely.
Of objects.
The amateurs nowadays have telescopes that rival what we had when I was a student 30 years ago, with the new detectors and the new technology for making mirrors. There's an awful lot of good science that amateurs are doing, everywhere from recording variable stars to recovering asteroids to doing asteroid light curves. Those are the things I'm familiar with, and that's just from my planetary side.
That's exactly the things I do. I learned astrometry on Eros when it came by, and we did the Parallax. I did. Well, everybody who was watching me.
We did
the historical Parallax of Eros 433 as it came by, and it is the way to get involved with astronomy, because astronomy is a natural science. Anybody can get involved with it, take it on their own level. The Internet's giving us new resources, and that's what I want to do at this point. There's a shout out for a group of people who run itelescope.net, who have telescopes, robotic telescopes that amateurs like myself have used, located around the globe, and they give us even more access to real images, to prove the things that we want to find answers about.
Yep.
And that's what got me going. I needed to find an answer, and the only person who was going to tell me the answer was me. So we had to have those resources, and thanks to itelescope.net for having them. And people like Brother Guy, who spend, you spent your whole lifetime astronomy, doing good for I don't want to call him the common man, doing good for the other man, right?
Well, if you don't share the stuff you've seen, if you don't tell anybody else about it, you might just as well not have done it. I think sharing what we see, not only with other astronomers, but even, people who just want to look through the telescope and go, wow, that's a large part of every amateur astronomer's duty.
I love it. Okay, I'm going to ask a sticky question. Sticky question. There is an infrared camera on Mount Graham named Lucifer. Yes or no?
Actually, they changed the name. It was not ours. It was somebody else in. It was a joke. They always like to come up with acronyms, and then it got such crazy publicity with wackos on the internet. They said, "Okay, we'll change the name." So they changed the name.
I'm not a wacko. I just, if you push it, if you try to push it away and pretend it's not there, then it does you no good either. So I wasn't asking as a wacko. I was just asking to clear the air.
Well, it's the wackos who tried to make a big thing of it. For one thing, it wasn't even our telescope. It's the one on the LBT with the large binocular telescope.
Right. You've already published a book.
Published a number of them.
The Heavens Proclaim, Astronomy and the Vatican. And I have it pulled up here on Amazon. I recommend it for anyone to go and purchase this book because in it are some great things. You've written questions and then you've gone back and answered, right?
The questions in that frequently answered question section actually were asked by a cardinal, the Cardinal Loyola, who was at the time the equivalent of the mayor of Vatican City and who really encouraged us to write this book. And he came up with the questions he thought would be interesting because, he's an interested amateur himself. He's got a little telescope. So that's what turned out to be a really great set of questions for us to attack.
Right. Because I suppose what everyone, when people are sitting back thinking, they're listening, they're trying to make an association with the Vatican and at this moment, astronomy, because that's what we happen to be talking about. So this book and these questions are perfect for that. So I really recommend the book. I'd love to, I have a section of it in here. Mm-hmm. I was thinking I was going to ask a question, but I just recommend people to go out and find the Heavens Proclaim. You can get some questions answered from inside, and like Brother Guy said, it was the questions were asked by a cardinal, which is interesting because you wouldn't think naturally that cardinals are thinking about astronomy, would you?
Hey, everybody thinks about astronomy. The sky belongs to all of us.
Oh, this is great because now you lit up the real interest of my life right now. Comet C2012 S1 parentheses capital ISON, the Great Comet of 2013. You know about it, right?
We hope it'll be the Great Comet. We've been fooled before.
I'm putting every bit of energy in it, okay? I'm going for it. Because, the southern skies, the people in Australia have seen have seen wonders that we've never seen here living above the equator. So I'm really putting all my energy in Comet ISON. Anything interesting coming with that? Because we know if it's great and is it a piece of the one from 1680? Does it have an association with 1680? Will people be thinking religiously, fanatically? Can I get you to spend 5 minutes talking about it?
I'm not sure I have 5 minutes to talk about it because
okay. That's fine.
Part of the trouble is we don't know. We won't know till it gets here.
I took pictures of it. I've taken pictures of it already, and it it's right now it's pretty. It has a little tail. In 2011, I was looking for Comet Olenin, and I don't know if you know about Comet Olenin.
Oh yeah.
That again, that's what started my whole adventure in astronomy, was that comet right there. And from that, I've built some fantastic friendships and an ability to reach out to people like yourself and talk about astronomy. But what your statement is about this great comet is let's wait and see, right?
The thing I know about comets is that no two comets are alike. Just because you've seen one comet does not mean you've seen them all. Every one of them is different. The first comet I remember seeing, I was in college at the time, was Kohoutek. And everybody laughs about Kohoutek because it was broadcast, this is back in the early 70s, oh, it's going to be the great comet of the century. And it turned out not to be big and spectacular. It was one that was discovered early on, so they thought maybe it would be super bright by the time it got to Earth, and it wasn't. Nonetheless, it was a really fun little comet to see. Then in the late 70s, I saw Comet West. It was a comet that nobody heard about, but I was in Arizona at the time. I was up at 4 in the morning, stepped outside, and it looked like every photograph of a comet you've ever heard of in the sky. It was big. It was bright, it was spectacular, and it was only around for about 3 or 4 days, and then it was gone. So if you missed it, you missed it. The comets
And
that
that's the way, that's the way the best things happen,
Yep.
you know. You get it or you don't.
And we've sent spacecraft now to, I think, 5 comets. So we've been able to look at the nucleus closely for every one. They're all different. Every time you go to a comet, you say, okay, comets must be like this. And you go to the next one, and
All right, this is the last break in the conversation between me and Brother Guy Consolmagno. I'll let the show run till the end because we said a great goodbye. Right now I want to say thank you to iTelescope.net. I want to say thank you to all of our friends, Jess, John Escoda, Will Messier, Stephen DeGracia, everyone who's out there who's been helping me, Jack Neal, Chuck Arnett and Doris, 555, Kim. Thank you all very much. If I missed you, you know I love you. Let's get on with the rest of the show.
figure out how the science, how the understanding of everything else we know about the universe can be applied to this particular comet, let's say. How what we see here fits in with our bigger picture of how we think the planets were formed, how we see planets being formed around other stars. It's all part of this conversation. It's not just a series of facts that you can rattle off like a 6-year-old.
Correct. I believe that. I was thinking, what's Francis, Pope Francis, is he a lover of astronomy? Is he a lover of astronomy? Do you know? Is it a part of his lifestyle?
I don't know astronomy in particular, but I do know that he's got a degree in chemistry. He was a chemistry teacher at one point in his life. So he certainly is familiar with science.
Yes. Okay, I'm not. Some of these questions I'm just they're coming right out. I want to make sure that I ask pertinent questions while I have you here. I'm thinking, Brother Guy, the best thing for me to do is, rather than run long, is probably keep it short. Is everything good with you in Vatican City?
So far, so good.
I want to thank you for joining me for this conversation. Everyone's been waiting for it. I've been talking about it left and right because I've been quite excited. I'm still excited.
Okay, great.
I want to make sure that before we go, was there something that you have going on? Is there some speaking event, or do you have another book that you want to talk about?
Well, this past week at the Vatican, there were a series of TED Talks. I don't know if you're familiar with those. You got on the internet, you probably know about them.
I love them.
Well, there was a whole series of them here at the Vatican that should be posted real soon. So and I was one of them. So if you want to know a little more about science and religion,
I will link to it.
Fantastic. Keep an eye out for that. It's TEDx at the Via della Conciliazione. But basically, find my name and TED, and once it goes up, you should be able to see it. So that was exciting. I also got to meet a lot of fascinating people, from basketball stars to Gloria Estefan to some wonderful scholars, including the guy who was the architect for the World Trade Center. So
during that session, during the TED Talk?
Oh yeah, it was just a phenomenal day.
Yeah, whenever I watch, because I watch the videos, I watch the YouTube videos. You can just, I like even when I go to the conferences, I say big brains. I can
Yep.
feel all the big brains working, and I love being able to feel that because when people are thinking, when they're using their brain, and when they're grouped together, I've done it myself. I've actually used someone else's brain. They've come up with the idea that I needed. You know what I mean? They come
Mhm.
up with the idea. They didn't need it, but in that process of working together, amazing things come about. And
That's that's why it's so important. The stuff that you do to spread the word about astronomy. And as I said before, no astronomer works alone. Even if you're by yourself at the telescope, you're part of a community.
well, with that, Brother Guy Consolmagno, I'm going to end this show. I want to thank you so much for taking time to speak with me. I hope that you found that it was worth speaking to me, and as soon as I get the bits put together, I'm going to give you a link to the description, to the show, to the discussion. I'll find the TED discussion and link to it there, and then hopefully you'll find, I'll find if I want to talk to you again, you'd find it in your heart to speak to me again in the future.
Well, I thank you very much. As I say, the important thing that all of us who are in the astronomy business have is to let the rest of the world know the great things that are there in the universe for us to see. And you're doing an important job there. Thanks a whole lot for having me.
Thank you so much. And with that, I say grazie and arrivederci.
Ciao.
Ciao.